So I'm Danae Leaman Hill. I'm the Director of External Affairs and Development at Ambitious About Autism. So I've been with Ambitious Autism for just over 6 years now, and I joined the organisation because I was really motivated by the cause. I'm a trustee also of an organisation that helps autistic young people, and I see how marginalised they are in society, and I just wanted to be part of an organisation seeking to change that.
So today we're talking about autism. So with autism, autistic children and adults, how easy or hard is it to speak to them or adjust with them?
Autism is different for every single person. There's a saying, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Some people describe it as a spectrum condition, in that every autistic person has different interests, different needs, different preferences. So it's quite tricky being able to generalize around, how one would speak to and support autistic people, because all of their needs are different. However, what's consistent for all autistic people is that the world around them can be quite difficult. There's not enough understanding and acceptance of autism. So what we try to do is help schools, employers, and other people who might be in an autistic person's life to understand autism a bit better and know how to provide an environment that feels safe for autistic people to really thrive. And it can be tricky because autism is different for everyone, but sometimes parents might notice communication differences. They might notice that their child or young person processes information differently, or perhaps reacts behaviorally in a different way if they're upset about something. So what we would always encourage parents to do if they detect anything that they think might be different about their young person is speak to their GP. And try and get some professional input. Ambitious About Autism has 7 education settings. We have a mix of schools and further education colleges, and we cater for autistic people who have really different needs. In some of our schools, we have young people who have typically have a learning disability alongside being autistic, so they might need really day-to-day help, sometimes with, feeding, hygiene, that sort of thing, as well as learning and experiencing work. And then we have other schools for young people who might have been in the mainstream, but mainstream settings just weren't equipped to support them to really thrive in those environments. So they're doing GCSEs, progressing to 6th form. Some of them are going on to university, but they really need that specialist setting to give them the support they need. We also provide training to schools everywhere. So we are part of a bigger organisation called the Autism Education Trust, which exists to train early years setting schools and colleges to really understand autism and support autistic pupils. I think no one will know better their child than a parent. So in that respect, no one's better equipped than a parent. However, we also know that there are very few resources for parents, particularly if they're concerned about something or they've just received a diagnosis. Often parents report that they just feel quite alone after they've found out their child is autistic. They're not given all the support and resources they benefit from. We have a really good tool on our website, and I don't know if you're able to share our website at the end of this or whether you'd like me to share it, but it's called Right from the Start, and it's a tool for parents of younger children who might be going through a diagnosis or have just received a diagnosis, and it really helps them with all the things they need to know about in order to really help their young person.
This toolkit you're telling us about, could you tell the process and the key factors and how teachers or LSAs or parents can access this and how they can use it with their autistic children or their son and daughters?
Yeah, so the toolkit is for parents and carers, really, and it really helps with all the things a parent or carer might be thinking about. They might be thinking, what school can my young person go to? So it helps them to understand what's available to them, what their rights are, and what sorts of questions to ask when they're visiting schools. They might be thinking, how can I access whatever healthcare support I might need? And they might be thinking about, who else can I speak to who might be in this situation. Another really good resource we have is a parent carer forum, an online forum, and that's called Talk About Autism, and it's free for anyone to join, and it's a place where parents can ask questions, access information, and connect with other parents who may be in the same situation as them, and may share the same views or be able to share information between them. Not autism and autistic children that are the challenge. The challenges lie in the external environment and the world around them, and it's navigating that world that's the challenging thing for autistic people and their families. So finding a school that's right for your needs can be a challenge. Establishing friendships and accessing local communities can be a challenge. I think bringing up an autistic person can be a joy, but it's tough when you try and help your child to, have a fulfilling life in the external environment. Autism doesn't typically occur by itself. We often meet autistic people who have co-occurring conditions, and they may be physical conditions, or they may be learning disabilities, or they may be other neuro differences like ADHD, dyslexia, all sorts. So we try to understand with all autistic people we work with, what are their needs? What are the sorts of adjustments they may find helpful to do well? And we don't make any assumptions because it's different for everyone. But you're quite right to make the point, because it just adds to the complexities of autism. There's a, it can also occur alongside things like epilepsy and things like that. So there can be lots of things to understand, and provide help with, and sometimes treatment when working with autistic young people. We describe autism as a developmental disability that affects the way someone communicates or experiences the world around them. But the label disability often doesn't ring true for many autistic people. Lots of people feel that there are things about their autism that are very enabling them and may enable them to do things better than their neurotypical peers. But we also recognize that for some people, if they are autistic alongside a disability, such as a learning disability, that means that there are other things that need to be addressed in terms of their needs. Every parent will want to make sure their autistic child or young person's education needs are met, and they want them to be in a school where they know that they are happy and safe. We also know that in this country, unfortunately, autistic young people, particularly in the mainstream, are the most likely to be excluded from school. So we know that will be an important consideration for parents, particularly if they're at work and, managing their child being sent home from school regularly will be really difficult. So, providing all the support we can to help parents find the right education setting for their child is really important. We also know that managing quite a hostile system that doesn't help autistic young people can put a lot of pressure on families. It can put financial pressure on families, relationship pressure. Often we find that one parent might have to give up their job in order to support an autistic young person who has particular needs. So, wherever possible, trying to alleviate that pressure through access to support, information, help where possible. Two brilliant questions. So I'll take the second question first, which is how long it takes. Unfortunately, a really long time. There are about 143,000 people on a waiting list for an autism assessment in this country. So waiting lists are very long. It's different depending where you live, but we'd always encourage a parent to speak to a GP as soon as possible if there's anything they're worried about and get into that assessment waiting list system. But that also shouldn't stop a parent from speaking to their child's nursery or school about what they're worried about and what sorts of adjustments they think their child might need, whether a diagnosis exists or not. You know, schools should be working with parents to help them, and schools understand that the waiting lists are really, really long, and they know that they need to step in and provide support sooner. In terms of your first question, how can we raise awareness? I think it's a really good question, and it's about helping everyone understand that autism is different for everyone and different for every family. Every family with autism in their lives will be going through it differently. So to understand that and make no assumptions about what autism looks like and what it means to be autistic is really important. And also, if you know a family with lived experience of autism, you know, perhaps they have a child or a sibling in their lives, you know, just understand from them what their experience is like and how you can help as a neighbour, family member or friend. Typically with exams, you know, extra time is something that's quite often given. If any, you know, person has any particular needs, it's, you know, it's quite a frequently offered thing by schools. But that's not necessarily what an autistic person needs. An autistic person may have a whole, you know, their needs will be different, and that's the thing that needs to be understood by schools and health professionals working with an autistic person. What are the particular adjustments that they would find beneficial? It may be extra time, but it may also be, you know, a quieter space, you know, a private space to do exams in. It may be to have questions presented differently. Long waiting lists are really down to lack of funding for this. So we know in this country, you know, we're living in austerity times. There's a cost of living crisis. This is something that is contemplated and consulted on and debated across government departments, but there just isn't enough money in education, health, and social care to manage the pressures on the system at the moment. It doesn't mean that organisations like us stop fighting and asking for more funding. We do, because, you know, we know it's important to the families we represent, but that's the biggest challenge in terms of waiting lists. And in terms of exclusions from school, it's typically because educators, you know, teachers and other education staff may not have had the training they need to understand autism. They may not have the basic tools to know how to manage an autistic young person if they're having a tough day, you know, something's unsettled them that's meant their behaviours have escalated. So it really comes down to funding and lack of understanding. There's some amazing talent within the autism community, and they are people who are making the world better. And there are some brilliant autistic people who may be non-verbal, have other needs, and they are equally amazing, and we should be fighting for a better world for everyone. Our biggest focus was always education, but we're trying to support autistic young people into work once they leave education. And our belief is that all autistic young people should have an experience of work, you know, and for some young people who may have other conditions, learning disabilities, that sort of thing, that experience of work may look different from that of an autistic young person who's been all the way through education and through university. But we still strongly believe that everyone can do something if they'd like to do something. So that's a big priority for us, how we give young people those experiences, and help employers understand how to welcome more autistic people into their workforce. So we have a whole range of employability opportunities for young people. We have supported internships. We have one in a hospital in North London, for example, where we have young people who are very well supported to do lots of different jobs around the hospital over a period of a year, so they really understand how that works. And then we also have an internships program where autistic young people have a paid internship within any type of organization. We have a really wide mix, from TV companies to lawyers to shops, all sorts. And we also provide lots of employment support within our schools and colleges. So we give autistic people the opportunity to try things out, have a careers education, if you like. We've done coffee making, horticultural programs, all sorts of great things. You're absolutely right. And very sadly, the prevalence of mental health issues in autistic people is really high. So around 80% of autistic people say they have or have had a mental health condition. And the consequences of that are really bad. Life expectancy is low for an autistic person, and mental health issues can play a part in that. So there's quite a bit we're trying to do to address this. We're currently piloting a mental health program in 20 mainstream schools across the country. And if that's successful, and we really expect it will be, we'd like to widen that to more schools. We also have some great resources produced by autistic young people for autistic young people about understanding their identity and managing their mental health. We have a brilliant youth network, the Ambitious Youth Network, which is made up of autistic young people aged 16 to 25. And they do some lovely peer support groups. They produce video pieces that go out through social media, all sorts of bits to address all the things that an autistic young person might be dealing with in their life.
What piece of advice would you give to, like you said at during the interview, about training as well? So how key is training, and what type of advice of training would you say is key in the school and home environment?
We think it's really important that all education staff receive some autism training. It's something we're campaigning for. We offer it through our partnership with the Autism Education Trust. Of course, local authorities need to commit to that and buy into that, but we really want this to be mandatory for all education staff. But it's also really important that there is a culture of autism understanding and acceptance within schools and other settings. So we want people to take the time to just try to understand autism, understand, make it feel like a safe space for people who may have an autism diagnosis or who may identify as being autistic, even if they don't have a diagnosis, to actually be able to be open about that and get the support and friendship that they might find really helpful.
Does it depend what age the student gets diagnosed autistic, or is age just a number of when they get diagnosed as autistic?
There are more adult diagnoses now than ever before, and what we sometimes see is that children receive an autism diagnosis, and then parents start to question themselves and think, actually, I may be autistic too. So that seems to be happening quite a bit. So diagnoses are happening at all life stages, but we really wish the system could work better in order that young people could get the earliest possible diagnosis, because once they have a diagnosis, then it's easier to access other supports they may need, speech and language support, occupational therapy support, all of those sorts of things that may be beneficial for them in thriving in life and fulfilling their ambitions. Well, a really big moment in the calendar for all autism organisations is World Autism Acceptance Month, which is in April next year. So there'll be lots of information in the media and events and things online that they might find helpful. But without needing to wait for events, I would really encourage your listeners who might be interested to look on our website, ambitiousabouautism.org.uk, where they'll find our toolkits, things like our Right from the Start toolkit, if they have a young person in their lives, a young child who they think might be autistic, but also our Talk About Autism Parent Forum, which is another great resource. So we don't have a helpline, but we do have a really good website, which is www.ambitiousabouautism.org.uk. And on that website, you'll find lots of bits of information, but things you might want to look out for if you're an autistic young person, age 16 to 25. We have our Ambitious Youth Network, which you can have a look at, access the materials and join if you're interested. If you're a parent and carer of a young child in the early years stage, and you're wondering whether your child is autistic or in a diagnosis process, you might find our Right from the Start toolkit helpful. And if you're a parent or carer of an autistic person at any age, or you're an autistic adult yourself, you may find our parent carer forum useful, which is called Talk About Autism. So look for us and please follow us and like and share our posts. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. So yeah, we'd love to see you online. It's always our name, Ambitious About Autism. So if you go on any one of those 4 platforms and do a search under Ambitious About Autism, we'll come up.